Good morning, my favorite students. I hope you all had a chance to get outside this past weekend and enjoy some of the sun, some of the heat. It's finally starting to feel like summer is here to stay, and I am really super excited about that. However, I wanted to take this opportunity to say that even though the sun's coming out, even though we're really antsy to get outside, we have to continue to keep working. We have to keep our motivation up. We have to continue to produce good work because it doesn't feel like we're in school right now, but we still are. We have a couple weeks left in this school year, and your grades are still going to count. You're still going to need this knowledge and this experience for next year and for the rest of your high school career. So continue to stick with me and the rest of your teachers, and I know we're going to make it through this together. Now that I got that public service announcement out of the way, I do have a bit of information to read to you today because we are starting our final assignment of the Romeo and Juliet unit. Those of you who were able to join me on Zoom last week know that we read through the final scene of Act 5, and now we have completely finished reading Romeo and Juliet, one of Shakespeare's most infamous plays. Thank you so much for sticking through it with me. However, of course, we need some time to debrief and we need some time to discuss the things that happened in this play, and that's where this final assignment is going to come into play. So please pull up this prompt. You can find it right on the Canvas page for today. I'll give you a second to do that. And then I'll explain to you exactly what this is all about. So when you have this file up in front of you, you'll notice right away that it looks like an old unsolved forensics file. And that's exactly what I wanted it to look like. Because for this assignment, you guys are taking on the role of detective. There has obviously been a great tragedy that struck the town of Verona. And I know that really Romeo and Juliet committed suicide. So it doesn't seem like there's much of a mystery to solve, right? Maybe. Or maybe not. In this case, for this assignment, I want you to get to the bottom of what really happened in Romeo and Juliet's life. Who is really to blame for the fact that these two young lovers had to die? Because we both know that there are a lot of people in Romeo and Juliet's life who dictated the way that they lived, controlled the things that they felt and the way that they thought, and in the end, that kind of overbearing control cost them their lives. So, as the detective, your responsibility is going to be figuring out who carries the blame. Who is the person who caused Romeo and Juliet to take their own lives? So go ahead and take a look at this prompt with me. I'm going to read through it with you just so that you can hear me reading it out loud and kind of get these thoughts into your head. It says, "Good morning, detective. I hope you slept well last night because there's been a terrible tragedy in the city of Verona, and we aren't going to rest until we solve this case. Since you're the best detective in our district, you might be able to help. Here's what we know about the case so far. On the morning of July 10th, two youths were found dead under mysterious circumstances. The male, Romeo Montague, 15 years old, suffered organ failure due to consumption of an illegal substance, as per the autopsy report. The female, Juliet Capulet, 13 years old, suffered from large lacerations, most likely a self-inflicted stab wound. These initial clues reveal that we might be dealing with a case of double suicide. Should be easy, right? Not necessarily. Between the recent riots and the increased number of local murders, it's obvious that someone else might be to blame. So it's your job to answer this question, and this is the key question for the entire paper. Who is really responsible for the death of Romeo and Juliet? We've already narrowed it down to a list of potential subjects. And you'll notice right underneath that, I list 10 key characters, and all 10 of these characters are characters who have been discussed by other students of mine when I have assigned this paper in the past. So I wanted to kind of put them all here in a place that's easy for you to look through so you can kind of get your thoughts moving and grooving. However, there are a lot of other characters in this book, so if you decide that maybe someone else is to blame, maybe the prince or Rosaline from the very beginning, maybe even Benvolio, go ahead and pick one of those characters. This list is not exclusive, and you can really discuss whoever you want. After that, it says, please investigate this incident and submit your written report by Friday, June 5th. And I have that highlighted because that is the projected due date for this paper. And I say projected because who knows? The school year might end up not going to the very end of the year like we expected. It might be done much sooner. And if that's the case, we're going to have to adjust this date. So please bear with me as we figure out the logistics of the actual due date of this paper. Both families deserve some closure, and we need to bring the criminal to justice. Very respectfully, Lieutenant Maurer. That's me. You don't know this, but I'm actually a secret lieutenant in Verona. So if you scroll down to the second page, you'll notice that I have the rubric printed there, just in case you're curious to see exactly what I'll be grading. But at the very top of the page, I print out for you exactly what I want you to include in each of the 3 paragraphs. Although this is meant to be like a full analytical paper, and typically that would be a 5-paragraph essay, we're working from home. I'm not going to be there to help you in person, so I reduced this paper down to 3 paragraphs only. 1 intro, 1 body, and 1 conclusion. So you'll notice that I tell you that in the introduction, I need you to have 3 things. A hook at the very beginning, so like a sentence that really captivates your audience. A brief overview of the case, something similar to that I did on the first page, and then a thesis statement that clearly states your argument. Now, I know you're familiar with thesis statements. You've definitely had teachers help you to work through these in the past, but I also help you to build up to this thesis statement over the course of the graphic organizer that I'm going to have you start today. So if the sound of a thesis really makes you freak out, don't worry, because I will build you up to that point, and I'll also be available to help, just in case you need a bit of guidance. Moving on, you'll see that in the body paragraph, you also need 3 things. First of all, a transition sentence. Essentially, I just don't want you to randomly jump from one idea to the next without some sort of smooth transition in the middle. So really, as long as you're saying something that says, like, here we're going to analyze the evidence, you'll be good to go for your body paragraph. I also, in this paragraph, need you to include 2 cited quotes. I'm going to say 2 cited quotes again, because there are still a handful of you who refuse to cite your quotes and continue to plagiarize Shakespeare, and at some point I'm going to have to penalize you for that. So please make sure you're citing whatever quotes you find. And then the third thing that I ask you to do is to then analyze those quotes, which means explain it in your own words and make a connection back to your argument. So instead of just plopping the quote right there in the middle of the paragraph, say a little bit about it. Tell me how it helps to prove your point. And then you'll do that 2 times, once for each quote. Does that make sense so far? Last but not least, you have your conclusion paragraph, and it's basically going to be the same as any other conclusion that you've written. I need another transition sentence, just so that I know you're going from your body paragraph to your conclusion. I want a quick summary of your findings, basically just restate who you think the murderer is, and then what are your charges. And then at the very end, I would love a lesson or a big takeaway, just so that we kind of end on this positive note, some sort of, moral that your audience can take away as they come to the end of your paper. So, if you kind of got lost in all of the words that I just said, please keep this paper on hand. You're going to have this prompt at your disposal for whenever you need it. And as always, if you need some more direction, if you're a little bit confused, I will be on Zoom this Tuesday and this Thursday to help clarify things for you. So, that's the prompt. If you are able to pull up the graphic organizer that's also posted on today's Canvas page, I will walk you through this next. And this is the only thing you have to worry about working on today and tomorrow. I don't want you to even start writing a paper. So once you get this pulled up, I'll start to walk you through it. This graphic organizer breaks everything down into 5 easy steps. The very first block, you'll see, asks you the question that the paper wants you to answer. Who is really responsible for the death of Romeo and Juliet? And I ask you to circle one of those characters. But like I said, it doesn't have to be one of those 10, so if you decide it's someone else, I also give you space to type out whoever it is that you think is guilty. The next step, the next block, which comes right underneath the first, it asks, why do you think this character is responsible? For this part, I don't need any concrete evidence. I don't need you to cite anything from the text. I just want you to doodle or make a list or jot down phrases, whatever you need to do to brainstorm in order to get your thoughts together and kind of justify to yourself why you think this person is the culprit. So take a couple minutes to just do that however you need that to look, and I'm not going to judge you for however your brain sort of spews out that information. The next part, which is on the second page, asks you to then dive into the text. Find one quote that supports your argument and don't forget to cite it. This is something that's really important for you to do because you're going to have to cite quotes in your paper anyway. So if you do the hard work now, you go into the text, you find your quotes, and you write them out here, you're already going to have the bulk of your paper complete. All you'll have to do is copy and paste those quotes into your paper and then write a little bit of analysis. So do the hard work now, and you won't have to do it later. And you'll notice, right after I say find one quote that supports your argument, I give you a space to start writing down some preliminary analysis. I ask you to explain what the quote means and how it proves that you're right. Now, it doesn't have to be a really lengthy explanation. It can just be kind of like your first attempt at saying what you're trying to say. And if you end up elaborating more when you go to write your actual paper, then that's perfectly fine. And you'll notice right beneath that in the next little block here, I just ask you to find the second quote. Cite it again, explain what it means, explain how it proves that you're right. Sorry, I don't know why I can't speak today. So once you find both of your quotes and you explain them in a quick and easy way, this very last block at the very bottom of the page asks you to try to write out a thesis. And I explain that thesis is a one-sentence detailed explanation that kind of explains very clearly what your argument is going to be. So this sentence should directly answer the initial question that the paper is asking you, who is really responsible for the death of Romeo and Juliet. And I give you a quick example here. I said Rosaline is responsible for Romeo and Juliet's death because, and obviously you would fill out the because. I just happen to use Rosaline as my example because I'm pretty sure most of you are not going to be using her. I don't know, unless you think that she might have something to do with Romeo's inability to love in a rational way. I'm not going to judge you. Anyways, this graphic organizer is what I need you to work on today. And if you need a little bit of time to get your thoughts together, to explore the text, if you start working on one character and you realize it's not really working out and you need to start over, you have plenty of time. You have all of today and all of tomorrow to work on this, and this graphic organizer is going to be due by tomorrow night. So, if you have any questions, I will be on Zoom tomorrow. And until that point, you can reach me via email, via Remind. If you want to send me a quick message, I'd be more than happy to help. And I think you guys are going to do great because we've been engaging in really awesome conversations about this play the entire time we've been reading it. So get to work and let me know if you need anything. Thanks, guys.